This video is brought to you by my patrons, my thoughts and opinions, and modern feminism. Hello, and welcome to, or back to, my channel. I'm Kit, and on February 23rd, 2025, conservative YouTuber Misha Petrov published the video, Trad Wives and Girl Bosses Go to War, with the thumbnail, Pick a Side. And, well, you probably already guessed, but yes, in this video, Misha talks about the apparent war between feminists and trad wives. I was unaware there was a war, but Misha said a few things I had some thoughts on, so let's get into it. And she starts off strong.
We're gonna start with the girl bosses.
By girl bosses, Misha means feminists, and I know I've said it before, but can we please stop calling everything girl boss? It's not only stupid, but it's also belittling. A grown woman is not a girl, and a woman engaging in paid employment isn't being a boss or, as the term implies, playing at being a boss. She's just doing what most people have to do.
So I'm teaching my daughter that it's perfectly acceptable to depend on a man, and that serving her husband and bearing children will be her greatest joy.
I think not teaching your child to be independent is doing your child a disservice. And teaching them to depend on a romantic relationship is extremely dangerous. It makes a child way more likely to enter and stay into an abusive relationship. Because at that point, it's not about wanting the relationship, it's about needing it. Because she's not going to be able to financially support herself, therefore she's going to have to stay in relationships even if they are not good for her.
Okay, so these are completely valid concerns. Since we're first addressing the modern day feminists, I want to talk a little bit about what that has been teaching women today.
Misha has no idea what feminism is, but I am curious as to where she thinks people are being taught feminism. Personally, it was something I had to actively seek out.
Which is that true empowerment can only come from climbing the corporate ladder. You have to be completely independent. You can't rely on the man because, fair point, if something happens to the man and you're left with nothing, then that's a huge problem. So women should definitely think about that. However, I do think that they take things too far. I think both sides take things too far. So we're going to address the trad wives as well. A lot of these women view motherhood as oppression. Like they're being brainwashed into staying home, taking care of the kids, and finding joy in that and not wanting a regular job. But when we look at the ideology that was being promoted, right, when we fast forward, we see that now we have this whole generation of exhausted, burnt out, lonely women that are actually miserable, right?
Editing Kit jumping in to note that Misha is blaming feminism for capitalism.
That this girl boss, boss babe, this kind of lifestyle was not very fulfilling for a lot of women.
Someone said boss babe once in 2014 and the internet still hasn't recovered. Anyway, is it just me or is her idea of feminism rather shallow? Feminism says motherhood is oppressive and true fulfillment is found climbing the corporate ladder. No. I would love to know what Misha has been reading, though, to come away with that impression. Actually, hold that thought.
Feminism is supposed to be about choice, not shaming women if they do choose to be mothers, to stay at home with the kids, saying that's setting women back.
Feminism isn't about choice. It's about liberation from oppressive systems like, oh, I don't know, capitalism and patriarchy. Which, funnily enough, Misha does touch on in this video, but she blames feminism for it, of course. And no, that doesn't mean I think you should go around shaming Instagram or TikTok accounts of stay-at-home wives or mothers.
I would also ask her, well, what happens to the career woman when she spends her whole life chasing success, prioritizing her career, never her family, and then she's 50, let's say, and looks around and she's alone, and it's going to be very difficult. When we're talking about dating and starting a family, that's something to keep in mind as well. So every life path has its risks. So yes, it is risky to completely depend on your husband in this way. It's also very risky to depend on your job, right, to feel fulfilled, where they often view you as replaceable, man or woman.
I would agree that it's risky to rely on your job for fulfillment, but humans are a lot more complex than that. It's not career or being a wife and or mother. You can do one, you can do two, you can do all three, you can do them at different points in your life. Life isn't static. And it's also not all about choice. There are a lot of people who don't have the luxury of choosing not to work, and I really hate that framing.
Like men in their 20s saying, oh, women are no longer submissive. Feminism has failed. I'm a traditional man and I want a traditional woman. And I'm like, bro, do you even own a home? Can you pay her bills? Don't tell me you're a traditional man when you guys are splitting the rent, you're splitting the bill, she's covering dinners, You want 50-50, and then you want to be able to tell her what to do.
Men want a housewife but don't even have a house. That's something that's not talked about as often, where they feel like they can demand a traditional woman, but yet you're not providing, right? You're supposed to be the provider. Now, let's be clear, this happens with women as well, who are like the boss babe type, and they want the man to pay, but you're not traditional at all.
Editing Kit jumping in again to note that studies have found that women who work full-time do more housework and childcare than their opposite-sex spouse, even when the woman earns more.
When the girl bosses come out here and say men are useless, right? But then why can't I get a date? That's also a problem. What are you talking about? You just called all men useless. You hate men, yet you want a boyfriend? You want a husband? Why would a man date you if he knows you hate him? Would you date a man that hated women? I hope not. So why would it be different in his case? It wouldn't.
I feel like that escalated quickly, but yes, if you publicly proclaim that you hate men or women, don't be surprised if men or women don't want to date you. Though I'm skeptical that there's a noticeable number of women out there declaring they hate men and then turning around and wondering why they can't get a date with a man. You look cute at the camera? Yes, oh, she's so cute. What was I saying? What was I saying, baby? Okay, anyway. There are some shockingly unself-aware people out there, but this is just a little too on the nose for me.
Never in a million years would I let my daughter believe it's okay to idolize trad wife living, relying on a man for security, or growing up to simply live behind a glass picket fence and tuxedo. No. Choice feminism, my butt. You're gonna girl boss. This is a crazy comment under this. Choice feminism will truly be our doom. Let's not act like women become trad wives without any outside influence at all. Like the expectation of women being caretakers didn't influence them at all. It's not that it doesn't influence them at all. I'm sure it does, but women do have like innate desires to be mothers, to be wives. This is kind of natural, just like men have more of a desire to provide for the family. This is not something you're just taught.
And Editing Kit jumping in yet again to note that gender socialization begins at or even before birth. So I'm really curious as to why Misha is so quick to dismiss these things as not just being taught.
And of course, some women, for example, are more maternal than others. But when we're talking about biology, like there are reasons that many women want that. It's not just because they saw it on TV. And this is crazy. You're saying that if your daughter wanted to be a trad wife, you wouldn't support her. You would say, no, you have to girl boss. You're not giving her that choice. So that is not feminism.
I'm very curious if Misha would call herself a feminist because I had the impression that she wouldn't. And yet she's very comfortable telling us what feminism is and isn't. Interesting. Anyway, no, telling people, including your own kids, what they can or can't do or be isn't, in my opinion, feminism. But as a feminist, actually just as a person in general, no, I'll never support a woman choosing to be a trad wife. Also, it's very easy to choose a role that patriarchy approves and supports for women, but setting that aside, I think as the term trad wife gets more use in the mainstream, we're forgetting what it actually means. A trad wife isn't a housewife or a stay-at-home mother. Trad wives believe women should submit to their husbands, not as a kink thing, but as the man should be head of household thing. And then, there's the white supremacy. I'm not supporting white supremacy, and I'm also not supporting women thinking they need to be submissive because of God or biology. I'm not going to advocate for laws against it. I don't even know how that would work, but I'm definitely not going to support it.
If you ever find yourself scrolling through tradwife TikTok, one thing you'll notice really quickly is tradwives never refer to their husbands by name. And it's because calling their husbands by their names would remind us, the viewer, that he's ultimately just some guy. I believe it's my duty to obey and submit to my husband. Sounds serious, right? Even if you don't agree with it, sounds archaic, medieval, high stakes. Now take the statement, I believe it's my duty to submit to and obey Keith.
Okay, that's pretty funny. They have books and podcasts, and they're running a little business online. They're content creators. They're not fully reliant on a man financially, yet they're promoting that idea.
Yes, and that's why I worry more about the audience rather than the influencers.
Put your clothes back on. I'm going to explain how trad wives on TikTok are the conservative equivalent of OF models. Okay, actually, I have a theory. So, like I said, going back to the point that a lot of them are pretending and they're not really trad wives, right? They're just putting on a show. It's very performative. I think that's probably geared towards the men. Like, it's not really about helping other women live this lifestyle, right? Giving tips and tricks and blah, blah, blah. It could be more about, oh, the guys will love this one. It's like pick me girl stuff, right? Not all of them. I'm sure there are women, like, they genuinely just want to show their life and, inspire other women who want to do this, and that's totally fine. But for sure, there are others who do lie, who do put on a show. But for the women who actually enjoy that lifestyle, who just want to show that off to the world, right? And that makes them happy, and that's their choice. What's the problem? How are we relating this to digital prostitutes? I'm kind of lost here.
Perhaps if Misha had listened to the rest of the video, she would have explained. But I'm imagining it has something to do with exchanging sex for room and board. There are, unfortunately, trad wives, actual trad wives, not housewives or Sams, who say you can never say no to your husband. After all, what would happen if he said no to going to work just because he didn't feel like it? Anyway, that was apparently the feminist section, and I am underwhelmed. But let's see what Misha has to say about trad wives.
So now we move on to the trad wives, which is about rejecting feminism, right? The girl boss mindset, and also about submission.
She left out the white supremacy, but that's okay. I'm here to remind everyone about it. And I know people hate to think that these attractive women, these aesthetic accounts, can hold such horrible beliefs, so my sources are linked below as always.
And they often say things like feminism lied to women, or women are happier in these very nurturing roles. And they do, of course, have a point, especially when we take a look at how this sort of more liberal, right, like feminist mindset is actually making women unhappy.
So, being myself, I, of course, checked out this article, and aside from it being from the Institute of Family Studies, which has Get Married and Pronatalism initiatives, the new evidence is from the 2024 American Family Survey, which is an annual nationwide survey of 3,000 Americans. So they surveyed 0.0008% of Americans and concluded that liberal women are more unhappy. And the survey is performed by Desiree News and the Center for the Study of Elections and Democracy at Brigham Young University, which are, respectively, owned and sponsored by the LDS Church. Please forgive me for being skeptical.
If they're just continuing to climb the corporate ladder, that's all they care about. They completely ignore their other instincts if they really do want to be a mother and they've been told, no, that's seen as weak, that's giving into the patriarchy, then of course, you're denying yourself what you really want to do and you will be unhappy. However, not all women want that, and that's another point to bring up because it's just not black and white. It really isn't. But they do have this valid concern, like we already talked about, that life is unpredictable. Death, disability, financial instability, all of that happens. And even if your husband provides, life can be expensive, right? Kids are expensive. Now, when we take a look at a lot of these trad wives, they are content creators. They are girl bosses. They are running a business. So that is fine with a trad wife aesthetic. A true trad wife in the historical sense did not work. Her role is to manage the home, raise the kids, and fully depend on the husband financially.
Well, at least Misha recognizes that these trad wives aren't walking the talk. This section wasn't too interesting, but I do want to add.
However, it's important to show both sides in a calm, collected manner so that people are informed, right? If they want to do something similar. I think that's kind of your responsibility as a creator. If you are just glamorizing like one lifestyle, you should at some point at least mention that it's not perfect.
I would really caution against getting ideas for how you should live from strangers' social media feeds. They're always going to be curated. You only ever see what they want you to see. Anyway, as I mentioned, this section wasn't too interesting, but we do get to find out what Misha thinks modern feminism is.
I would just ask what she means by feminist. What does feminism mean to her? Does it mean rejecting this twisted modern day version of feminism where women just genuinely hate men?
Modern feminism isn't about hating men, it's about intersectionality. It's about liberation. And honestly, feminism was never about men. Men benefit from it, but it's not about them. And I am so tired of people like Misha using their large platforms to produce such lazy content. I was going to say I don't know why people listen, but actually, I think I do know.
The feminism I support is about equal rights, being able to vote, to own property, right? Yes, being an entrepreneur, starting your business. A lot of the trad wives are using those rights.
Misha is in favor of the status quo. She doesn't want things to get worse, but she also doesn't want things to get better. Though, honestly, things probably look fine where she's sitting and she has no desire to look deeper.
True empowerment would be sticking to your own values without seeking validation from the trad wives or the trad husbands or the feminists.
I do agree that you shouldn't seek validation from others, especially strangers, about your life choices. Anyway, final thoughts. I wanted to comment on this video because, well, I think it's pretty obvious why, but I am so tired of this extremely lazy content that proclaims feminism is about climbing the corporate ladder and hating men. People really think feminism has existed for hundreds of years on such shallow grounds? Come on. And they never provide sources or any sort of thought process behind their statements. And no, a woman on TikTok said she hated men and that she's a feminist, so obviously feminism is about hating men isn't a source. And then these videos get thousands of views and the lazy ideas spread because they're lazy and people like things that don't ask anything of them, that don't demand any sort of self-reflection, that confirm what they already thought. I also wish we would use the term tradwife properly because conflating the two gives tradwives cover. People hate me because I'm a housewife. No, people just don't like white supremacy and telling women they need to submit. Okay, that's it for this video. Please feel free to share your thoughts below and I'll see you in the next one.